Hey folks, it's Jang here from ultimaterc.com, and I'm about to do a unboxing for you. This is the Traxxas Rustler XL-5 edition, so the brushed edition. And this is very near and dear to my heart because the Traxxas Rustler was my very first ever hobby grade RC that I got back in 1999. They have made some changes to it though over time. So let's go ahead and open up the box and see what's inside. There she is, all fresh and clean and ready to be torn apart. Yeah. Let me first get some of the excess stuff that came in this box covered. In here is just a wall charger. I guess I'll show you that. It's their very basic small one. It's a 0.5 amp output unit that is just plug in and go. And then I'll just put that out to the side. And we've got some other stuff in here. Your speed gearing pinion, a larger size of pinion gear, which you only want to use for maximum speed runs on road, and that's what allows you to get the advertised approximately 35 miles per hour top speed. You've got some body washers. Those are useful for helping to make your body last a little bit longer. Some spare pins in there. I've got the extra adapters for swapping in aftermarket servos with different sizes of splines. There's an antenna tube topper in there also. We've got two of these bags which have leftover parts for shocks that give you the preload clips, and also some extra pistons and also some spacers. And then we also have a little bag of tools, some turnbuckle stuff, which isn't quite as useful on this vehicle. We'll see that it doesn't have a full complement of turnbuckles, but a couple Allen wrenches, and then a T-wrench, which is mostly used for taking your wheels and tires on and off. Also for adjusting your slipper clutch. Then we have a big old set of decals here to allow you to do a little bit of customization, a little personalization for the look. And then I'm going to take this out right now. I'm going to need to use that a little later on when it comes time to actually get this thing running. This is the antenna tube, because this is the cheaper unit that uses a 27 megahertz radio system. Speaking of which, I'll go ahead and go through this right now. The radio is the exact same one that came on my ready-to-run Rustler that didn't even have an electronic speed control back in 1999. It's the TQ2. This may be the most common radio system sold in the past decade, if not more. It's very basic, has nice ergonomics. I like the feel of it in the hand, but the plastic is kind of hard, feels a little bit cheap. Has just trims for steering and throttle. It also has reversing for steering and throttle if you start swapping out different types of electronics that need different stuff. It requires 8 AA batteries that are not included, and that's pretty much it. It does have an adjustable, what do you call this thing, trigger. Physically adjustable. Right now it's set at the 50-50 setting, and there's also a 70-30 setting that puts the middle right there, so you get a little bit more range with your throttle. And then of course, being a 27 megahertz AM radio, it has the long antenna that, is good for fencing and also braking and bending and such. So that takes care of that. Now we can focus on just the truck itself. And so first off, the overall look of it. This is not the original Rustler body. They did update the body in the past, I forget how many years it's been, but the XL-5 model was introduced in 2006, and I did a written review of it back then, but it's been slightly updated since then with the new body that is much thicker, and the design of it is also better for durability. It has more roundness to it, more of just an overall arch shape to it. So this is going to last a lot longer than the old ones did. And they did I'm going to go ahead and take this off. They did a really classy thing here. I don't know if this was intentional, but with the blue bodied one, using these blue anodized screws to hold the wing on. I really appreciate that. I mean, that's just such a nice little detail. Now, if they use those same blue ones on the red body, then, well, that's not cool. But I haven't gotten any of the others, haven't looked into it. These are backed with plastic nuts, so it acts as a little bit of a natural thread lock there, and keeps it from weighing too much. So good job with the body. I think it's all screen printed and such. You might not like the design, but it's available in a number of different colors, and it's a good functional body for sure. It even has a little bit of curvature down here on the lower pieces. I don't know if that's intentional, but if it is, that's great, because it just helps to hug the chassis a little bit. It doesn't go all the way in, but I actually did this on my original Rustlers. I bent these in. It's just, I don't know, I think it's a cool thing. So with that gone, we can now, let me go ahead and move this up, getting a little bit closer here. Now I get to look at all of the warning things that they added in here. So let's see, this is a quick note about setting up the speed controller. It also mentions the same thing that this does here. It has a LiPo cutoff in it. So if you want to run a LiPo battery in this, you actually can safely without having to purchase an additional external low voltage LiPo safe cutoff or alarm. And then this right here says use Traxxas high current connectors, because we're Traxxas and these are the ones we make, so we want you to use these. But you can use any connector you want as long as it is set up to fit. The default ones are naturally the Traxxas connectors, and they are perfectly fine connectors. They can handle good amp draw, and you know, they are good connectors, but they are kind of proprietary to the Traxxas stuff. Pre-installed in here is this battery, and it's a hump pack, obviously, with the 7th cell up here. Nickel metal hydride, 3000 milliamp hour pack, 8.4 volts is the nominal voltage on it. Comes pre-installed. It's a heavy thing, you know, but this will definitely give you a little more speed than an older 6-cell pack. They had to go with the hump design because there's just not enough room in this battery tray. You can actually cut out some stuff from behind here to make extra room. You can put up a lengthwise pack in there, but that's okay for now. This is what they give us, and it's always nice to have a battery included for the lower end kits, where oftentimes it's going to be the person's very first RC. Let's see, I always like to just do this so quickly, is just get a feel for the suspension setup stock, and it is definitely over dampened up front. I'd say these things need a nice soft suspension to avoid a lot of understeer on them. So over dampened there. The spring rate might be pretty decent though, but it's a little hard to tell. The rear feels pretty decent. Yeah, might be a little bit stiff, but not too bad right there. These shocks are perfectly good. I've been using, they're the exact same design, well, almost the exact same design they've been using since I first got into the hobby, and they're great. The only thing that's really bad about them is that these upper caps are made of plastic, and sometimes with stresses that go through the suspension and with a lot of sudden loading, they can actually just pop right off. It'll just move around the threading. So you want to, if you start popping these off with a lot of heavy use, just get the aluminum caps, either from Traxxas or from Team STRC, and that'll fix that problem. And you can adjust the oil in here. You can get different springs. You can do a lot of tuning to make this truck handle pretty nicely for many different types of terrain. Let's see, I have one more warning label here, and this one is about the high performance 12-turn motor. Help your motor keep its cool for long life. And this is just a response to many people who burn out their Titan motors. Oftentimes it's due to just abuse and not paying attention. Sometimes, from what I've read and seen of people's experiences, it's not from abuse. There are sometimes just bad motors that come down the line. But here they now explicitly let you know that, especially if you're new to the hobby and you don't know, if you drive through something like tall, wet grass, it's going to really, really, really slow down the vehicle and bog down the motor is the word that they use, and will put a lot of stress through it, and it'll heat up a lot. So they want you to pay attention to heat and driving conditions and just be a little bit conscious about it. It goes a long way to have some basic understandings. As far as electronics are concerned, I already mentioned we have a 27 megahertz radio system, and the antenna is all rolled up here. This is going to extend way out and go past that. The end of that antenna tube, which is going to mount right here, the antenna is going to go out past here. It needs to be doubled back and then wrapped around this, and you really need to secure it so it doesn't just flop all the way around. But it is in a waterproof little box right here, completely waterproof. These things are sealed up quite nicely, so you don't need to worry about your radio getting burned out if you just run through a puddle or something like that. Similarly, the 2056 servo that they include now, this is a big upgrade from the old 2018 that they used to have. This one has a lot more torque in it, and it is also waterproof, so that's more goodness there. Finally, the ESC, the speed control, is also waterproof. The XL-5, it's brushed only, has just one single button on it, and they've got instructions on how to use that. As I mentioned before, it does have a LiPo cutoff in it, so you can use a 2-cell LiPo pack with this vehicle without changing anything else out. And that's just convenient if you already have LiPos, or you just want to take advantage of the additional runtime and a little bit of extra performance you get from LiPos. And then the motor is the Traxxas Titan 12-turn. They call it a 550. It's got a little bit of a long can because it has a big fan built into it back here to help try to keep it cool. This guy will run hot if you run it hard. Not the greatest motor out there, but a very fast one. It definitely leans more towards the side of performance rather than longevity. Really always is going to depend upon just how you use your vehicle, how long that's going to last. Now, the transmission here does have all metal gears inside, so it is brushless ready. If you want to just turn this vehicle into, let's say, upgrade it to VXL edition specs, you just take these things out, put in the brushless motor speed controller combo, and you are good to go. For starters, you will need to, of course, think about your gearing, make sure that your gearing is appropriate for whatever you're doing. But one other thing that they don't mention that you really want to take care of if you upgrade is the fact that while the transmission has bearings in it, ball bearings, the wheel hubs do not. And these have oil-light bushings, and you can see them over here. See that the bronze color down there? Those are just bushings, and actually on here right now it feels like these wheel nuts are tightened just a little bit too much. Those actually should spin longer than that, but you do want to put a little bit of just regular, like 3-in-1 oil in your bushings from time to time, just a little bit, just to keep them damp and let them last as long as possible. They at least do give you the larger hubs than they used to now. These take 5x11 bushings or bearings compared to the old 5x8s. So when it comes time to swap those out, if you do want to swap them out, you can just put in the good stuff your very first time, and then you shouldn't have to worry about those for quite a long time. While we're looking at the front, you'll notice that you do have a turnbuckle for each side for the steering linkages, and those are adjustable, so you can change your toe in, toe out. But the camber links are plastic, and those cannot be adjusted. There's just nothing you can do with those. So if you want to change your camber, then you will need to upgrade those. Similarly, at the rear, you've got, again, plastic links here, and the oil-light bushings are used inside. As far as adjustability is concerned here, you've got nothing up top with the shocks. You do have several options down at the bottom for where to mount the shock at the rear, and at the front you only have 2 options there. It's going to give you a little bit more droop in the front if you move it in, where your wheel can come down farther when it goes, when you take a jump and it's in the air. It'll also soften things up a little bit. But other than that, and like I said, the front toe in, toe out, not a lot that you can adjust on the XL-5 Rustler. Speaking of toe in, toe out, don't worry about the white, that's just styrofoam packing material, but the Rustler rear arms do not give you any toe in, so they're just straight. And that's always been probably the single worst thing design-wise about the Rustler. Once you start putting more power into it and starting to run it harder, it can get to the point where you can easily overpower the rear and it'll start to slide out a lot under power, especially at lower speeds when you really get on the throttle. And having no toe in at the rear really helps to enable that to happen. So that's unfortunate, but you can upgrade the hubs later on to add that in, or use the Proline ProTrack Slash or Rustler or Stampede rear kit, or just the rear arms to adjust that. But you also need to have the turnbuckles also. What else is going on with this vehicle? I think I've covered most of the good important things about it. Like I said, the suspension setup, I'm definitely not so happy with it right now. Even when I put in this heavy battery to give a more realistic view of how it feels, it's still on the stiff side, especially up front. I mean, that's not bouncing back. So I might end up adding a little bit of preload just to get the height here, but at the rear it's just sitting up way too high also. So some adjustment, I can move my shocks out here, mess around with preload, change out some shock oil a little bit, but for right now I'm going to leave it as it is, leave it completely box stock, because the next thing I'm going to do is start actually driving this truck and give it some proper tests, see how it performs as it comes right out of the box. And I will upload some driving videos. I already have some driving videos up from like I said, from 2006, from when I got the original XL5 version, and it's going to show you similar performance to what this one will, but those are old and pretty low quality videos also. So this will be new and all in HD, and that will all be in preparation for the full-on review. And after I do the review, I'm going to do even more with this, the Traxxas Rustler XL5. That's it for this video though. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for more as it comes up, and I'll be talking to you again soon.